So the first stage here is to draw the vertical and horizontal line. Just nice and light, quite rough. And what we want to do then is to map out where we're going to put the top of our box and the bottom of the box, making sure that they're pretty much equal distance from that center point of the horizontal and vertical line. Then we use these lines in that crosshair to create the parallel lines for the box. So the top of the box is parallel to the horizontal line in the center and so on. We create those little guides at each side of that crosshair. And what they do is they basically just hug that square, and that's what the circle will do as well. At that point it will just kind of merge into the square, and it just helps us to create our arches. And we've got to make sure that they're pretty wide arches. We create those same guides then for the pupil and draw that in there. And again for the iris, and we've got to make sure we're looking at the drawing as well to make sure that we're drawing the right values, making sure that the pupil is that particular size compared to the iris. And that's just basic, the basic structure we'll build the eye around. And the next part then is to get that upper eyelid and to see where it cuts into the pupil a bit. And trying to examine the angles, and you can see that I'm drawing it very lightly, just scratching it into the paper very lightly, and then redefining it more when I feel I'm happy with the angle. But I'm consistently looking at the photo which I have in front of me on my laptop, so I'm just constantly referring to that to tell me what to do, and I just draw what I see to the best of my ability. It's not always going to be possible to get it completely accurate, but you're just trying to get it as accurate as possible. Defining where the highlight is on the pupil, and again trying to get those angles just right. And once you've got that basic structure, from there it's really just about building it up bit by bit and adding shadow and adding light. And it's the combination of those two things and the depth within the shadow and the depth within the light, the amount of tonal values. That's what's going to give you three-dimensionality and ultimately what's going to give you realism. So it's really important to be able to start to define where you see certain shadows, to mark those out, to define certain areas like the pupil. And I'm kind of trying to work around all the different elements that I see at the same time. I'm building it up layer by layer across the whole drawing, rather than just focusing on one specific point and developing that layer by layer till the end. I'm trying to add everything that I see there and develop all the different elements together, and that way they continue to relate to each other, which is important because, you know, to be able to see the different tones, you need to be able to see them in relation to other tones. So for example, the lightest tone, in order to make a light gray that's not as light as that, you need to see the lightest tone, and the same with the dark tones as well. And like I say, the more variety you have of that, the better. So here, for example, I'm shading in at the white of the eye and just adding shadow to the top where the eyelid will hang over that and leave some shadow. But in creating just a small light gray tone over the eyeball, I'm making decisions then about, you know, what really is as light as it should be. For example, that reflection on the pupil is almost pure white, whereas the eyeball isn't. So I need to be able to differentiate them, and those kind of decisions across the whole drawing is what will give you that tonal variety. And like I say, the more variety of tones that are there, the more three-dimensional and realistic it starts to look. And again with the eyebrows, I'm just trying to map out different lines that I see that are quite clear and the angles of those lines. And it's just basic sketching at this point. But each time I come back to an area, I'm just trying to develop some of those areas more, keep certain areas light, darken certain areas that I need to. So again, I would just say to refer back to your photo all the time to give you the correct angles, and to decide then what lines are light, what lines are dark, and where. And again, as I do that, I'm really just gently scratching into the paper, seeing that angle appear, and deciding how much more I need to do to it, or how little I need to do to it, depending on its tonal value. So while I'm making that outer rim of the iris darker, I'm also trying to blend it a little bit into the other tones that are in it. I don't want it to be too sharp because that wouldn't be realistic. But again, I'm looking at the drawing, or sorry, looking at the photograph, and in creating the drawing, then trying to mimic what I see to the best of my ability. So one of the things you don't see me do in this video is using the putty eraser. I just created a sharp little end to it and use that to take away some of the shadow on the eyes and to create those two dots of light and highlight a little bit of light skin over the upper eyelid to the left near the nose area. And yeah, my camera just cut out basically, so I didn't get that in the video, but you can see what it looks like in the final piece. So just try to maybe use that tool sparingly, don't use it too much. Just understand where it needs to go and just gently dab it until you get it to the kind of light area that you need it to be. And again, just referring to your photo for that reference. So if you have any questions on this, do let me know.